Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Texas City High School for tonight's State Representative District 23 Forum. We are proud to have you all out here tonight. We are glad to also partner with the Texas City Independent School District as well as the Texas City High School's Young Americans for Liberty. They are doing a fundraiser so a lot of their kids can go off to Washington, D.C. and take a look at our nation's capital. And to tell you a little bit about the organization and their fundraising efforts, I've asked their sponsor, Mr. Daryl Hannes, to come on up here. Daryl, if you would.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming out this evening. This is a tradition we're trying to get started here in Texas City. Not necessarily taking your money as a fundraiser, but trying to get the people involved in the community. We did this for the primaries. We had a decent turnout, had a great turnout of candidates and a decent turnout from the community. That's something we're really happy to see that has grown this evening. I'd like to make this a tradition. As students graduate, they return and have the opportunity to come and one-on-one personally get to choose their candidates in an educational form and learn what they have to actually say, and not just because their sign on the side of the road is blue and that's their favorite color. So we are glad to see that. We've got a great group of kids, and we are going to have the opportunity to go to Washington in the second semester this year. The part of that is funded by the Texas City Rotary, which we greatly appreciate them providing that. Also an organization called the Institute for Civility and Government that helps provide that for us. And then we also have to provide some funding on our own, which is why we do these events and try and gain funds for that. So we appreciate it, and I'm going to introduce Brianna Martinez, our secretary, and a veteran of the Washington trip, and Brianna Martinez.
Good evening. I'm Brianna Martinez, secretary of the Young Americans for Liberty Club. Thank y'all for coming out tonight. I was fortunate enough to be chosen for the trip last school year. It was a really good opportunity. We did a lot of sightseeing. We went to the Lincoln Memorial. We went to Capitol Hill. It was a really good experience for me. So thank y'all all for coming out here and help support our club.
Brianna and Daryl, thank y'all so very much. All right, before I bring the candidates on over, let me kind of go over the format. Not kind of, but we'll go over the format with you here. Each of the candidates were participated earlier in a drawing of who will get to go first, even got to pick the chair. We did not use part-time NFL referees for this, so it is clean. So Craig Eiland drew the number 1, so he picked the chair, and we'll get the chance to do the intro first and then take the first question first. We then rotate to who gets asked each question first. Then at the end, the candidate, in this case it would be Mr. Faircloth, the candidate who didn't get to start first of the intro will give the first closing statement. We have 3 minutes for intros, 90 seconds for answers. If it seems both candidates are really engaged in a particular answer, we have the liberty to extend that an extra 90 seconds for both candidates, and we'll probably do so throughout the night. We're hoping to get about 12 or 14 questions in throughout the evening. So first, let me bring up our candidates for the night, and then we'll get underway. First up, let me bring out the incumbent Democrat, Mr. Craig Eiland. And his Republican challenger from Dickinson, Mr. Wayne Faircloth. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And as we said, as they do their answers, they will stand up during that time. We have our timekeepers up front here, Ashley and Angela. And candidates, so you know, the pink signs, you'll be given a 30-second warning, a 10-second warning, and then the stop sign will come up. I'll let you finish the sentence that you're in. If it goes a little bit longer, you'll hear me then chip in and say stop at that point, in which we will cut you off. But fortunately, we've done these forums. We have not had that problem. So we sat over here on our timekeepers. So, Mr. Eiland, you got the draw of number 1, so you get to do your intro first, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. Hope we'll have fun and all go out of here friends, or at least unbloodied. So I'm Craig Eiland. I'm the father of 4 children and the husband of 1 wife. I grew up in a small town in West Texas, Stanton, about 3,000 people. Went to Baylor University and Baylor University Law School. I lettered in football there. And then when I graduated from law school, I went to work on a ranch in the Outback. And then I came to start my career as an attorney in Galveston. I've been here ever since from 1987 till today. I was elected in 1994 and have served as state representative for parts of Galveston County since 1995. I believe that when you go to Austin to be a representative, your job is to represent your district, not your party. And I have tried to do that since I've gone to Austin. Your job is to pass bills, kill bills, and to amend bills when you can't do one of the first two. And you have to know and have experience to know which one of those to do at the appropriate time. I'm proud that I have been a very bipartisan person. I work with both parties in the legislature. I've served under 3 speakers, 1 Democrat and 2 Republicans. Each one of them have made me a vice chairman, a chairman, or speaker pro tem. I've been recognized by Texas Monthly on 2 occasions as one of the top 10 legislators, and recognized by Capital Inside, one of the online publications, as all-decade team from 2001 through 2009. So I've tried to be effective by working with everyone. I want to go back and be your state representative for several reasons, but one of them is because although we have come a long ways since Hurricane Ike, and we obtained a lot of funding from the state and federal government to rebuild our infrastructure, including UTMB and Texas A&M, that job is not finished. And we've had groundbreakings, and we have cranes in the air now, but it's not over until we have ribbon cuttings, and the cranes are gone, and we're opening new facilities and buildings. So that is one of the things that I want to go back and finish. I also want to go back and we continue to work on Texas Windstorm Insurance Association to try to get that so that we have affordable coverage down here on the coast where it actually covers something that you can afford. Next session, there will be lots of change in the legislature, and I know people want a lot of change. Over 50% of House members next session will have either 0 experience or 1-year experience, and I think I can help in that process.
Thank you, Mr. Eiland. Mr. Faircloth, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Welcome and good evening. We appreciate you being here. This is an awesome group, and we are excited about the opportunity to visit with you. My wife and Cheryl and I have been in Galveston County for over 35 years. This is our home. There are 3 generations of Faircloths that make their home here as well, my children and grandchildren. And we have not only done that, we've built a business, and we've integrated our lives into the community. And our goal has been to serve. And we love this place. It is absolutely the best place to live. We live here full time. I'll let Mr. Eiland tell you where he lives. Our priorities are simple. I want to bring a business sense to state government. It is about jobs and the economy. Inflation and getting out of our business and allowing business to do what it does best, and that is functioning on its own in a free market enterprise. That's what we want. I built a business, I understand that. We need to find opportunities in the state legislature that other people miss. That's what I do. That's what this election is about. It's about creating jobs and the economy. So why am I running against Craig? Well, excuse me, he's a nice guy. And he's done some good things in the 19 years that he's been there. However, I would do a few things differently. I would support small business and make sure that they flourish, and we create the climate for that in order that they could give people the jobs to put food on the table. Craig sues businesses, and he sponsors legislation that helps him do that. That's what he does. On city council, I have a record of working and making sure that we get the most out of the tax dollars that we have. I found ways to use interlocal agreements and to find cooperative purchasing programs to save taxpayers. Craig, on the other hand, has voted for spending limits. He also voted for rainy day funds, spend our savings account. That is not a good idea. It's not what we should do. As far as people when he should have provided reform, he should have established the leadership to make sure that we can have affordable insurance and not suing mine and your only avenue to try to protect from hurricanes. I'm Wayne Faircloth. I ask for your vote. I appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
And candidates, if you could, make sure the mic is as close to your mouth as possible so it projects a little bit clearer there. Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Eiland, you'll get a chance to answer the first question first, and it's a little bit lengthy one, but it deals with public education. Almost everyone agrees the state system of funding public schools has major problems and in some cases doesn't work. But few people have had much to say about specific ways to fund them. What's your plan, and would it include the elimination of the Robin Hood pay-as-you-go system?
Well, I represent at the current time 3 Chapter 41 school districts, Galveston, actually 4 now with Lamarck. Chapter Galveston, Texas City, Barbers Hill, and Lamarck. And so certainly if and when we restore and reform our school finance system, the goal will be to get rid of Robin Hood. The problem that will create is that we have to raise money from somewhere else to replace the money that they're taking from us. There have been several proposals, one by Senator Bob Duncan from Mountain Lubbock, to have a statewide property tax to fund schools. That would take constitutional amendment, so if that ever happens, you will get a chance to speak. There's a lawsuit right now by 80% of the school children in the state, including every school district in Galveston County except Friendswood, that are challenging the school finance system, saying it's unconstitutional. We will have a result of that trial in the middle of the session, and sometime after that, the Supreme Court will speak. That is when we will have an opportunity to address the shortfalls once the Supreme Court declares it. And hopefully we will start over, because our school finance system is antiquated and does not work. And when we have more time, I'll say what.
Mr. Faircloth, would you like the question again, or are you okay? Do you need to hear the question again, or are you okay?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. I think I understand the question. No, it's something that's important to all of us. We need an educated workforce. Everyone doesn't need to be college bound. The last numbers I saw, 58% college graduates go home after they graduate. The job market is not there. We need less organization. We don't need the state of the federal government telling us how to run our schools. The federal government provides 10% of the funding for our schools, and they want 100% of the say. And so we spend 39 days testing people. And as a friend of mine says, you don't fatten a steer by weighing him. That's what we're testing. No matter what we do, that's what we're going to be sued. No matter what the legislature does, we're going to be sued. There's some school district somewhere come up and say, it's priority number one for the legislature. We have to get that on the radar. We will. Thank you.
Expanding some more on that, Mr. Faircloth, you'll be able to go first this time around. If the existing formula continues, what would you do to find ways to increase revenue or increase efficiencies within school districts to save money along the lines? Would you support the status quo or support some type of tax increase? And if that's and what form would that take if you supported a tax increase on that. Would it be a business tax, a property tax, or some type of combination? So that'll allow you both to elaborate on what you got. Mr. Faircloth, you would get a chance to go first on this one.
Okay, thank you. I'm a small business owner, and one of the major considerations for us are taxes. Folks, I don't believe raising taxes is the answer to the issues that we have. We need to do away with unfunded mandates that come down from us, that come down on top of us. And let me tell you one of those. I recently heard from a cafeteria worker there were 85 mandates that came down to the cafeteria from Michelle Obama. We're going to have better food in the cafeteria. That's important. That's important. But it creates a hardship on us because whatever happens, you and I have to pay for it. I will not vote to raise taxes, folks. I just won't. I will work with the school districts to try to find efficiencies in what we have, but we're in a down economy. No one is making more money than they were before. Very few of us are. There may be some that are, but that's not common. It's time. We have to tighten our belt. We can't raise taxes and make it more difficult for people to own a home. That's my opinion.
Mr. Eiland?
The last time that the Texas Supreme Court told the legislature that the funding scheme was unconstitutional, the legislature passed the bill in 2006, and I voted against it because it was not what was represented to the people. It was represented that it was a tax swap, that we were going to change the way we funded schools, less reliance locally, more reliance on the state. We would go from $1.50 maintenance and operations tax down to $1. We're going to pay for that with certain things, and the main thing being the margins tax. It was estimated at that time that the margin tax would not pay for that full 50 cents, along with some cigarette taxes and other things. They were going to make up for that difference with magic or magical growth because they only paid down to like $1.15. Well, guess what? The margins tax didn't even raise down to $1.15. It raised about half of what they thought. That's called a structural deficit, and last year it was close to $7 billion. What happens when that $7 billion has to come from other places in the budget? Whenever they declare this system unconstitutional, we have to do one of two things. We either have to fill that gap ourselves in the legislature or allow local districts to fill it themselves by increasing the tax rate that they can go above $1.13.
All right, our next question, Mr. Eiland, we have it first. And also, as we go between each of your answers, give us just a second to reset the timer there so we'll be fair to each of you. Mr. Eiland, you'll get this first, and we now talk about Texas Windstorm. What should be done to protect the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association, which has people across the state complaining that coastal residents are being subsidized? You get it first, Mr. Eiland.
The number one thing that we are doing is we've got the Chamber of Commerce is involved from Corpus, Galveston, Texas City, and Beaumont to make sure that the rest of the state realizes the importance of businesses and homeowners down here and that it is not million-dollar beach houses in Corpus and South Padre, that the people that purchase TWIA insurance work at BP. They work at Exxon, they work at Valero, they work at the port, and that they cannot continue to have unlimited increases. And to start that effort, as we began and talked here in Texas City a couple of weeks ago, I have gone to visit with Valero in San Antonio to try to get this on their radar for their workforce. We will be meeting with other petrochemical and chemical companies, and other legislators are too. Now, it won't be their number one priority, but if we can get it on their radar for their workers, that will help so that we can all band together, not just as the 14 coastal counties, but when Valero and New Star, with their headquarters in San Antonio, tell their legislators, we're from San Antonio, our workers live in those counties on the coast, we want you to help us with this reform. That's all we need to do. That's what we're working on.
Mr. Faircloth.
Thank you. Texas windstorm is a dicey proposition at best. It is, in my estimation, it's become a cesspool. No offense. But it is a system that cannot sustain itself. I think it's interesting that we want to reform and we want to slow. One of the things we can do is we can have tort reform. We can stop trial lawyers from coming in and siphoning off funds from our trust funds. It's $1 billion in there. So everybody that had an ice cream needs to be paid. Make no mistake. TWIA did not do its job. It's still not doing its job. It needs to do a better job with what's there. Why don't we do that? Is not sustainable. It will not work. We need other options. That's what I intend to do. Thank you.
Our next question, Mr. Faircloth, you'll get this first. Should a person who has oversight responsibilities in the legislature be taking on TWIA legal cases or being able to handle or write TWIA policies? And if so or if not, explain your backing of that.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. If you have oversight of them, in my estimation, no. I believe we have a responsibility. This is an office of trust. It's really pretty simple. It pays a whopping $10 a day to do this work. So you have to want to do this. You have to want to be the local representative. It's something you have to want to do. To have oversight responsibility, to me, also provides, it's a role of protection. At the time that it's crippled and bleeding, we don't go in and continue to make it more difficult. It's not fair that anyone, Mr. Eiland or anyone else, should be able to sue and take mine and your money. We're paying premiums into that fund. We want the money to be there. If it's about somebody being whole, let's make sure they get whole. But we don't need to do it. If you want to do that work pro bono, great. Absolutely, let's do it. But to go in and compromise yourself, no, that's not right.
Mr. Eiland, you have your turn.
First, Mr. Faircloth said we need tort reform on TWIA, and we did that in House Bill 3. Your rights to go to court were taken away. Now you'll have to go to a process called appraisal nearly every time. So that part has been done. There are two committees that have oversight of TWIA. One is the TWIA Oversight Committee created by House Bill 4409. I'm not on that committee and never have been on that oversight committee. I'm on the Insurance Committee. We oversee and have and pass laws on all insurance companies. When I came back after the 2009 session and found out how bad TWIA had screwed people, there was no way I was going to turn my back as a legislator representing people in Austin or as a lawyer representing them in the courthouse here. I'm very proud to have represented people, many people in this audience, on the claims that they had against TWIA when they got cheated or screwed or had an inadequate snaggletooth adjuster from somewhere up north who, after they adjusted their house, went away back into wherever they came from. And so I will not apologize to represent people. I didn't represent people in the back room. I represented people out in front, in public, at the courthouse.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you can, so that let the candidate finish his answer before the cheering. We appreciate their enthusiasm, but it takes away from their time and a chance for other people to hear. So do wait for them on that. You'll have time to do that since we'll be resetting the clock each time. All right. Mr. Eiland, you'll get this first. After Hurricane Ike, the state supported plans to build a new hospital at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, a move that was considered critical to UTMB's recovery and survival. Is state funding for the new hospital certain, and would you continue to support it? If not, what could be done to improve the chances of that money funneling down and making sure it stays for that purpose for the hospital on the island? Mr. Eiland.
The funds for UTMB, there was two pots of money, $150 million in what's called tuition revenue bonds. That money is certain. It has been funded, and it is there. The other $150 million has been appropriated twice. It's been appropriated for UTMB's rebuilding efforts, both FEMA match and FEMA related. The FEMA match money is not in doubt. It is not in dispute. The FEMA related money has to be continually approved by the Speaker, Joe Strauss, Lieutenant Governor, and Governor. I believe that right now we do have all the support. I was in Austin yesterday meeting with them, going over the numbers to try to make sure that we get those last draws, because what I want to make sure happens is we've had that money appropriated twice to us. FEMA is slow, and therefore we have been hampered in spending the money appropriated to us. We have to get it in our bank account before the next legislative session gets too far down the road, so that we can spend it and make sure it's in our control, because we do not want to let this appropriation lapse. That's why I'm working with the Speaker and his staff to try to get that announcement soon. We've got the Appropriations Chairman, Jim Pitts, coming down here in 2 weeks, and we have his support.
Hi, Mr. Faircloth. Would you like a question? Are you okay? Yeah, no problem. After Hurricane Ike, the state supported plans to build a new hospital at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, a move that was considered critical to UTMB's recovery and survival. Is state funding for the new hospital a certain proposition, and is one that you would continue to support? If not, what could be done to improve the chances of that money funneling down for that particular purpose for the building of the hospital on the island?
Absolutely. I think everyone here understands the critical importance of UTMB. I mean, it is vital. It is absolutely vital, from the Galveston National Laboratory to the medical school. I have a daughter-in-law that graduated there, and today she's a labor and delivery nurse. Absolutely. Having spoken with the people at UTMB, they have done an excellent job of making use of the resources that they have. They have retooled. They have a strategic plan. We need to support that. The Republican legislature, I want to be sure and say this because it's critical, Republican legislature understands and recognizes the value and importance of UTMB. And so they funded that. It was their support that helped do that. This was not a one-man show. And no disrespect, but it's not. And so they've done that, and they'll continue to do that. They understand the necessity of that. I will continue to work tirelessly, just as Craig does, just as the Republican legislature does, to make sure that outside forces that would want to move that campus. The campus has been there since 1891, and it does a lot of work just for pro bono charity work in the communities. They do a great job. We're proud of University of Texas Medical Branch, and we want to support them forward. Thank you.
All right, next question up, Mr. Faircloth. You'll get this first. Do you believe the ruling in the severance case? This is the one that made some big modifications to the Texas Open Beaches Act. Was good law, and what should the state's response be to that ruling?
Wow. I don't think it's good law. Texas has an Open Beaches Act. That gives you and I access to the beach. The issue here, as I understand it, is that Ms. Severance is an attorney that owns some property. She lives in California. She sued the state and says that this is my private property. So the GLO, the General Land Office, comes in and says, okay, if it's private property, if it's beachfront, we won't spend state funds to replenish that beach. I don't think that's a good plan. We need to replenish the beach. We need to be able to do that. I don't think it's a good law. I think we need to work to do everything we can within the General Land Office and with the legislature to see what we can do to overturn that. Thank you.
Ms. Brown, your turn.
Well, the severance case is the law, and that's the only thing that really matters. The Supreme Court of Texas came down on property rights decision to make sure that people who had not lost their property rights gradually didn't lose them suddenly. So that's the law. We had a meeting last Friday in Galveston where Jerry Patterson and his staff came down to meet with local people, all the interested parties, the city, the county, homeowners, to try to get everybody to get on the same page to try to fix the law. As it is, it's not good law for Galveston, and it's certainly not good law for Harris County. Harris County is working on their own plan to try to address it to make sure that the beaches stay open to their residents. Those of us on Galveston Island and those that are interested in the issue have to come up with a plan and solution, which is what we're working on, to try to get everybody on the same page, because otherwise this will remain the law no matter what, because it's going to be very hard to make an amendment to the Texas Constitution that takes 2/3 of the vote and a vote of the people. And that's going to be very hard if you're going to try to prevent people from going to the beach for the rest of the state to agree to that. So we've got to come up with a solution, and we're starting to work on it.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Eiland, you'll get a chance to answer this one first. In times of tight budget, this may be a tricky one to answer. If you're going to increase spending in one area of the state budget, what would it be and why?
If I was going to increase funding in one area of the state budget, it would be education, because that is where that is our future, not just in our children, but our workforce. If we don't have workforce, whether it's college-ready and college-educated workforce or career and technology-ready and workforce, our state is not going to flourish in the future like it is right now. So that's the one area where we would do the most good, and that's where I was supposed to spend the most money in an increase.
Mr. Faircloth, your turn. Would you like?
Yes. If we're going to make an investment, and we're investing in the future, we want our young people to have an opportunity. We want them to have the same opportunity that we had to make a difference, to carve out a life for themselves. And so I agree with Mr. Eiland. We need to invest in education. That would be the long and short of it. That's what needs to be our focus. This is the future. And when we come here and we see young people, we get to interact with them, we understand how important this is. And that we have to be willing to do whatever we need to do in order to provide for them. It's an unselfish gesture, but it's one that we have to make. It's one that is critical to our future. We're investing in the future through education. That's what we do. Thank you very much.
The flip side of that now. Do you have one specific area you'd like to cut in state funding? Mr. Faircloth, you'll be getting this first. If so, what would it be? How much do you think it would save, and what would you do with that money? Your turn, sir.
Well, one of the things we're going to do, and one of the things we have to do, is we have to balance the budget. The budget has to be balanced. That's something that is a requirement. It's not an option. It's absolutely something that we do. If I had to cut something, I would have to seriously look at the Texas Education Agency. There's a lot of testing, a lot of mandates, a lot of struggles that schools face in interacting with them. That would be an area I would look at. That wouldn't be the only one. I would also look at the Texas Department of Insurance. I'd take a look at them, and we need to absolutely evaluate every department and to make sure that we are doing the job that they've been set out to do, the job that they were created to do. Because without that, we're not making progress. So I appreciate it.
Y'all are making very good time tonight, by the way, I should point out. Mr. Eiland, your turn.
After the devastating cuts from last session, where we cut everybody, I don't know of any particular department that I was cut. I can tell you that cutting the Department of Insurance does not save a single dollar per ton, because they set their budget and then they assess the industry that they regulate. And so we recognize that cutting the insurance department, who doesn't investigate enough complaints in the first place, doesn't save the state any money. Education consists of 60% of state dollars. Health and Human Services, which are nursing homes and things like that, is 27.8% of our state funds. We underfunded Medicaid, which is nursing homes, it is childbirths, and those type of things, last session by $4.5 billion. So we've already cut that. The budget for Medicaid will run out in April. Doctors will not get paid. Hospitals will not get paid unless we have an emergency appropriation, which we will, of this excess funds that we have. So we can't cut there because we already underfunded. And I don't want to cut prisons.
All right, Mr. Eiland, you'll get this one first. What could and would you do to generate support for a regional storm protection system? We've heard the term used as Ike Dike around here. So what would your stance be within the state legislature and your approach to promote that idea? Or, if not to promote it, why not?
The first thing that we have to do is change the name from Ike Dike, because nobody in the state, I believe, is going to support something that they believe just saves Galveston and Bolivar from devastation. So we have to make this a Houston and a Houston area issue. And so I was thinking on the way over, we should call it something like Strategic Infrastructure Preservation Levy. That would be simple, SIPL, kind of. So that's the very first thing that we have to do, and people are doing that. When they went to the Netherlands recently, they took the Bay Area Economic Development Group. We've got to get the Greater Houston Area Chamber of Commerce involved, because it has to be about protecting our strategic infrastructure, which is our chemical plants, it's our refineries, and it is the Houston Ship Channel. That's what the Ike Dike, with a new name, Strategic Infrastructure Preservation Levy, has to be about. It can't be about us.
Mr. Faircloth.
Well, as most of you know, there's a lot of talk about that. There's been a group that's gone to the Netherlands to look at what they've done. A lot of their entire country is below sea level, and they're faced with 23-foot tide changes. And so it's a major, major issue. For us, the Texas Gulf Coast generates about 32% of the state's economy, according to an old survey that was done recently. We have 7% of the state's population. It is critical that we do present this as a strategic dike preservation. We must do that, because we cannot allow the infrastructure that we have at the refineries, the ship channel, the commerce that comes in and out of here. We cannot allow that to be threatened by storm surge. To my knowledge, I haven't been here since 1900, But to my knowledge, this has never happened. What happened with Ike, we come in from the backside and we see the backside of the island is flooded. It's a critical issue. There's money been allotted for that. We need to support the study and see what the feasibility is and make sure that we find a way to get it funded. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Faircloth, you'll get this question first. And we're hearing a lot about this in other parts of the state, but it affects this area as well. What can the Texas legislature do to ensure Texas has a long-term water supply? Obviously, that's something in North Texas and West Texas. It's a lot of fighting going on, and we're starting to see more and more of that down in our county and other parts of the district. How would you address it, and how you think the legislature should address that?
Well, to my knowledge, it is something that's on everybody's radar. It's something that we have to consider because we're not seeing the rain that we once saw. We are in a prolonged drought. Several years ago, I saw a pipeline coming out of San Antonio because San Antonio is dependent upon an aquifer, upon well water. Here we know in El Paso there is a brine plant, which desalinization, which they use for their water supply. That's an option here. It has to be feasible. We continue to see advances in technology. I think that's going to, I think that's at some point it's going to be affordable. My grandfather is rolling over when he sees me pay $1 for this bottle of water. But trust me, we can't go very long without it. It is important. I mean, we've seen changes. When it becomes necessary for us to have an adequate water supply, desalinization may look awfully attractive, and we're going to have to explore our options. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Eiland, same question.
Well, the legislature, thanks to Senator Buster Brown from Brazoria County several years ago, has, and Lieutenant Governor Bob Bullock, I don't want to leave him out because something might happen to me, passed a statewide water plan that is recognized to be a good water plan for us. The problem is it's not funded. So the first thing that's going to have to happen at some point, sometime, is our water plan has to get funded. Locally, what we have to do is, now that we have realized, the Gulf Coast Water Authority last session realized it was overcommitted on water supply, then they are starting to get that straightened out. But that's the first thing we've got to do locally, is to secure our water supply for our communities and our industry, because they have the first rights to it. So that's one. The second thing that we could do and should do is have incentives for conservation. Some states have incentives for you if you put in things like recycling your water to use on your yard, to use plants and grasses that are less water dependent, to do those type of things, and they have incentives to help give you tax breaks to do it. We should do the same.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Eiland, you'll get this question first. Does the state have a role to play in immigration? If so, what is it?
Well, I think the state has a role to play in immigration, and that is to try to make the federal government address the situation, because we cannot afford to. We send our tax dollars to Washington. This is a federal issue, and they need to deal with it. The immigration that we have here locally, we are spending money. We've got helicopters down on the border and all type of things like that. But this cannot be, immigration cannot be a patchwork, city by city, state by state resolution. It's a national issue. It requires a national solution. It requires the federal government to address it and take it off our backs.
Mr. Faircloth, same question to you.
Thank you. Immigration is a concern for all of us, because without secure borders, we're really not secure. And we know from having our legislators who've gone on tours, who've gone down to the border and watched what happened. Over 70 different nationalities are crossing into our state. And many times they're just unabated. They just make their way here. I understand this is a great place to live. You know, if we live south of the border, we may feel the same way. But it's taxing our infrastructure. It's putting too much pressure on our hospitals, on our schools. It's creating a burden on you and I. It has to be brought under control. And the federal government is solely responsible for that. Now, we're not going to just sit idly by. We've got people who are willing and able to stand in the gap and make a difference there. But the federal government needs to do its job. Texas has the 14th largest economy in the world. I believe the federal government can send some of the dimes back that we send them and provide for our protection. That needs to happen. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Faircloth, you'll get this first. Would you support legalizing casino gambling or expanding gambling in the state of Texas? If so, in what form and how would you go about it? If not, why not?
Casino gambling is very popular in Texas, and people enjoy it. They absolutely like it. And if you go to our neighboring states that allow it through their law, we see license plates that are filling the parking lots that are Texans. I believe it's a local issue, and I believe the local communities ought to be allowed to decide if that's what they want. I don't think that the government, we're going to be in control, of course. I say we, the government, it's you and I, but that is something that is a local issue. It needs to be addressed. I can't imagine trying to move 100,000 people on and off Galveston Island, but there are other issues besides just that. But I believe I'll let the people decide. It's shown that there's enough interest for that. So if that's what people want, then I think that's what they ought to have.
Mr. Eiland, your turn.
Number one, if there ever is casino gambling in the state, I want to make sure that Galveston County has the option to be part of it, because Galveston Island cannot have San Antonio and South Padre and Houston having casino gambling and us not, because we would never attract the conventions that we need to attract. So that's one. Two, I believe that it should be a statewide it will be a statewide constitutional amendment because that's what's required. Knowing that, the legislature should go ahead and put it to a vote of the people and let the people decide instead of bottling it up. I don't have any real expectation that the legislature is going to pass any casino gambling. The state Senate, with the election of some new people, has gotten more conservative, and so I don't think that you can get 2/3 of the Senate to pass a casino bill. And finally, some of us have kind of talked about this, but if the rest of the state doesn't want it, if the rest of the state doesn't want to help us have adequate funding capacity for TWIA, let the 14 coastal counties have casino gambling. Let us keep the profits here, and let us fund TWIA's trust fund with that source of revenue if they don't want us or they don't want gambling.
It's been a long campaign season, a lot of it because of fights over voter ID law, over redistricting and everything else. But in particular, I wanted to get your stance on the state's voter ID law, why you would or would not support it in its form that it did pass the legislature. And we will let Mr. Eiland have this question first.
I had my own voter ID law, which I tried to pass. I voted for this voter ID law because I want to get to a system where you just have your driver's license and you show up to vote and they give you your ballot. It really frustrates me that we have this old-timey voter registration system where they act like everybody's still on the horse and buggy when we have modern technology and other states have same-day registration. The problem is by the time all the negative campaigning starts, and gets you interested, it's too late to register to vote, because you have to register to vote 30 days ahead of time before the negative campaigning starts and before people really start paying attention. And by that time, it's too late to go register. There's absolutely no reason to do that. And so what I want to do, and was hoping that this voter ID law would be the first step to, is to get us where we can just have our driver's license show up and vote right then and there. We can figure out and guarantee it that is a valid driver's license and you are still living at your house. But we can do it, other states do it, and we should do it, because our problem is not too many people voting. Our problem is too few people voting. So we shouldn't have artificial, antiquated hurdles.
Mr. Faircloth, your turn.
Absolutely. Voter ID is a simple thing. Even with what's going on today, it's not a problem for us to show some form of ID to go and vote. You'll get to vote if you want to do that. Mr. Eiland did vote against Senate Bill 14, the voter ID bill that was on the floor. If we want to have ballot security, voter integrity, we need to pass a simplified identification for Texans. That is not a problem. You can't work on a boat and the game warden pull up and not have some form of ID. You need to have identification. We're not discriminating or mistreating anyone. You can go get that. People who couldn't afford one, the state would give them an identification. So voter ID is important. We want honest and fair elections. We don't need to have lawsuits over everything that we try to do. It just compounds the problem. Thus, we're still running for a solid year due to redistricting. It's been a long season. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Faircloth, you'll get this question first. A lot of debate on national health care reform and its impact on the states. What is your stance on how Texas should approach, given the Supreme Court ruling, about what portions of that law still stays in effect? What is your take on how the state should approach its stance on that now?
Well, I think what's been pointed out is that Medicaid funding is going to have to be increased because it was not funded last time. We're going to have to take $5 billion from somewhere and fund Medicaid. The problem for you and I is that the Supreme Court ruled that the Affordable Health Care Act, and as Mr. Obama likes to say, Obamacare, that is going as a tax on every family. We're going to have to pay that. That's going to make it more difficult for you and I to do business, because we're going to have to pay that tax. So the impact it's going to have on the Texas legislature, it's going to cost us money. We're going to have to fund that. I checked with UTMB. I said, what's the greatest struggle you're going to have with funding? Guess what the answer was? Obamacare. It's going to hurt our funding. We're going to lose funding as a result of that law. So it's all about, do we want government to tell us how to live, or do you and I want the freedom and the opportunity to decide for ourselves? Do we really know best, or do we need somebody to take care of us? That's the issue. Thank you.
Mr. Eiland, your turn.
Well, in the Affordable Care Act, there is a requirement that states set up what's called an insurance exchange, where you as a health insurance purchaser can go and choose from different plans that meet the requirements. If you do not set up your own Texas health insurance exchange market, then you will default into a federal government-created health insurance exchange. There were some Republican members of the legislature last session that were prepared to work on that issue. But Governor Perry said that we would not do our own Texas insurance exchange. So I think, although we are good friends and have many of the same beliefs, I think that's wrong. I think that Texas, as big as we are And as different as we are from Rhode Island and as different as we are from Washington State and Oregon, we need to come up with our own health insurance exchange marketplace so that our citizens can go to a Texas-created health insurance exchange place, not a Washington, D.C. place. And if we don't do it, we will default into a national exchange that does not necessarily address the nuances of Texas people between the Valley and their healthcare capabilities, Houston with the medical center and its capabilities. So I think we should create our own.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Time now for the closing statements. As we said earlier tonight, Mr. Eiland got to start. So, Mr. Faircloth, you get your first shot at your closing statements. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. We extended the time. That may be helpful. You know, I think it's clear, folks, that what we see here is it may not be a tale of two cities, but it could definitely be a tale of two ideas. I believe that free market enterprise is the best approach for Texas. I think that we need to give our businesses every opportunity to succeed. It is interesting to me, sad to me, that the very largest taxpayer in our county has 51,000 people signed up in a lawsuit against them. And we wonder why British Petroleum wants to sell and move. From my estimates, from what I see in the last year of crisscrossing this district, they're a very, very good neighbor. They're a platinum sponsor for everything that goes on in Texas City. They reinvest in the community. They do a great job. You know, this is about jobs in the economy. Do we ask government to do it, or do you and I want the freedom to do it on our own? Do we want do we want not to be overregulated to the point that we can't survive, that we can't make it? I want to represent you in Austin. I will not choose personal fortune over public representation. I won't do it. I will represent you, large and small, makes no difference. You're the engine that makes this work. You're the priority here. You are the voter. Now, no disrespect, but Mr. Eiland, this is a picture of your home in Austin. This is where you live. This is where your family and kids live. I want you to just be honest and tell us that. This is a crux of part of the matter here. I don't mean any disrespect, folks, but we need local representation. We need principled leadership. That's what this is about. Thank you. Yeah.
Your turn, sir.
I hope over the last 18 years that you've gotten to know me and will vote for me based upon what I've done. I have not addressed this issue before because it's personal, but Mr. Faircloth brought it up, so I will, because I think it's an issue that you should consider. The picture he showed is my wife's house in Austin. After the hurricane, we evacuated there, and our daughter, I have 4 children. One of my children has special needs. Prior to the storm, we had driven her to Houston every day for 2.5 years to a special school. We had just brought her back to Galveston. When the hurricane happened, we evacuated. Eventually, we got her into a public school up there that has tremendous special education services. My family stayed with me through the legislative session because we knew it was going to be very difficult in 2009. It was going to require my entire attention. At the end of that school year, the ARD committee and her doctor, her counselor, and the principal said, if you do not have to move her and change her because she is progressing, she is thriving, don't. And we said, we don't have to do anything except what's best for our children. And so I've been through 2 legislative sessions with my family living in Austin and me living in Galveston at 15 Cedar Lawn North. I have a law office here and employ somewhere between 10 and 20 people, depending upon the project. So I live in Galveston County. I live on Galveston Island. I have an office. I have employees. I pay taxes. My wife and children live in Austin for our children, and that will not change. And I made that decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, please let him finish.
So I think that you should consider that. What I think you should consider, instead of how big my wife's house is has that impacted my ability to represent you in Austin? And I think that my career, and especially the last two sessions, which is the two sessions where this has been in place, I think that if you look, my representation of District 23 has not been impacted by my family's living situation. I'm here during the week, and I'm with them on the weekends, and if they have a special deal at school during the week, I'm there for that. But I burn up the road to take care of your business in both places.
Gentlemen, thank you. Mr. Eiland, Mr. Faircloth, thank you all for tonight. We do appreciate it. Thank you all for coming out here for the forum. And folks, just kind of a reminder, as is a tradition with the Galveston County Daily News, we will have our candidate questionnaires done in a couple of weeks. You'll see some of these questions plus added ones. Please send them in to us. We'll be more than glad to include them in there. Also, the Students for Liberty here, we're handing out issues-oriented ratings. They've asked you to fill those out before you go. They've been doing that at all their forums. We're going to be including their results in our newspaper. And then also we're going to have an online replay of this forum tonight. It'll be available at all times at galvnews.com. And if any runners are in the group or walkers, feel free. We have our press run that supports our newspapers and education program, which is Saturday morning at 7 o'clock. Thank you all for coming out. Get home safely.